All right. Hello, everyone. I see everybody is logged in and welcome. Thank you for all being on time. Welcome to week 3 of our class. I'm going to pull up our slideshow for today's lesson. So today we will be going over we're going to be understanding environmental factors on recovery from major sport injuries on collegiate athletes. Our lesson objectives for today, our participants, being you all, will learn the positive and negative factors associated with the college organization and athletic administration. You will learn the factors associated with coaches of those sports organizations, the factors associated with athletic trainers and team physicians, as well as the effects of family, friends, and teammates on injured athletes. So today, when we're talking about environmental impacts, we're talking about the external. We've talked about a lot of internal effects on recovery, such as the student athlete's own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that affect their recovery. As was highlighted in the first week of this class, human beings are social creatures. So our external environment, the people around us, the entities around us, affect our own thinking, our decisions, our behaviors, and how we perceive things. So one thing we got to understand in relation to athletes is that it's typical for them to have more notoriety in their environment. So think about them on the college campus. When you play sports at a school, typically the school students, the faculty, the dean, etc. You're just more well known in your environment on campus. And then when you think even higher than that, some of these students get national and or regional notoriety via TV shows like Sports Center or other sports reporting agencies. So even if they're not athletes, all people respond to their environment via social interactions. Today, you'll learn about the various environmental factors on the recovery process of a collegiate level athlete, and you'll be able to more comprehensively explain the impacts of sport injury. Understanding of the concepts from this week and previous weeks will be essential to providing effective care for individuals involved in sports and involved in other things that you may all encounter in the future as you begin the practice. So let's move on to why environmental factors are important. So it's important to understand that the attitudes and perceptions of people close to these student athletes impact their opinions and actions surrounding their health. From a socio-ecological framework, individuals make decisions about health and enact behaviors within a very complex social environment. For student athletes, the views on mental health of their coaches, athletic trainers, teammates, families, friends, and the athletic administration impact how they will respond to mental health related challenges. So as you can see in that, I just hit on every entity that we highlighted that we'll be discussing today and how they impact the athlete following an injury. Unlike most of their peers, student athletes have to transition into the independence of adulthood while dealing with the pressures to perform in all facets of life due to their athletic and academic expectations that are placed upon them. The culture around them is going to affect their likelihood to seek help. Sociological relationships that student athletes engage in are key factors in shaping their perceptions of their injury and of mental health utilization. So a key part of that we kept seeing is that the environment around them is going to affect their likelihood and also how they perceive mental health use and also how they perceive their own injuries. So throughout this lesson, I want you to think about, although we are talking about the athletic realm, think about how some of these elements show themselves in your desired professions or your desired areas of psychology that you are looking to perform in. As we go through this lesson, I will start at the top of the pyramid. We're going to start with the front office. We're going to start with the sports organization, the athletic director, and we're going to move down echelons, getting closer to the player. So first things first, let's talk about the college organization and the administration. So administrations influence student athletes via their control over policies of the athletics department. Directors have a large amount of control of what mental health services are provided and their accessibility. A director may have perceptions of mental health services or psychologists, and some may look negatively at athletes who utilize these services. The structures of an athletics department and perceptions of those close to student athletes can affect mental health service utilization. Policy administration can aid in prioritization of health and wellness for athletes, or it can tear it down. Studies have shown most campuses lack access to a sports psychologist. So, being more specific, it has been shown that only a quarter of campuses have a sports psychologist on staff. If they're not on staff, then hopefully that school prioritizes referral or has a third party agency that supports the school. But as we see, when they talk about policy, examples of this can be, let's say that one athletic administration has a policy where if an athlete is injured, not only will they go and see the team physician or whoever provides physical rehabilitation, they may also require that they see mental health service providers prior to returning to play. That's not going to be standard across the board. That's going to be administration or organization specific. And this is both in athletics, this could be in an organization outside of athletics. It's all going to depend on the perspective of that CEO or that athletic director, that manager, that supervisor on what they value. So that's where we see they have a large amount of control. Think of funding, and they're deciding where they're going to allocate resources. Will I spend money on vending machines, or will I spend money on paying to keep a sports psychologist on staff, or paying to keep a physician on staff? Some colleges don't even have a team physician, and they have to use the local hospital or some other medical entity that's surrounding the university, because they may not have the funding or they may not allocate the funding for that. Location on campus, you may not have mental health services in an environment where the student athlete can easily get to them. They may need a car or buses that can get them to that, or wheelchair accessibility, etc. This all depends on the injury, etc., of what the athlete may be experiencing and the campus that they are on. So we're going to take a look at athletic directing done right by seeing how Greg Hardy runs his organization. And you're going to quickly see that this guy, his mindset for mental health services is just right on point where it needs to be, not only in athletics, but across the realm of organizations. So bear with me as we get this thing loaded.
The real mission, my objective, my obsession is to help people become the world's greatest experts on one subject, on themselves. One of the things that I emphasize and teach, if your life is going to work, it's going to be because of your decision making, your ability to have healthy relationships, and to be able to take total control over what you can control. First order of business is trying to be in control of your thinking, your decision making, problem solving, and how you interact with others. So 17 to 23, that age group is a terribly exciting group to work with, because this is when you get a chance to let the adolescent child begin to take a back seat to the young adult. If you want to be the best, you have to develop yourself in more than one area. Can you imagine having a young person in my office and trying to explain to them they could be a better athlete if they're a better person? Trying to explain to them if you fight to be the best academically, you increase your chances of being the best athletically. That's a tough sell sometimes, But you have to push people to understand that everyone comes with baggage. There's stories in our industry, in our lives. There's stories with our peers. There's stories with young athletes who are the absolute best, all-American this and all-American that, who turn out to be human beings struggling with the same things that everyone else is struggling with. Understand that the NC2A, the Big Ten Conference, conferences all over the United States have put an emphasis on mental health. And what we've discovered is how crucial it is to have a variety of folks that people can talk to, who look different, have different backgrounds, and we've done an exceptional job of making a commitment to making sure that our students had access to a wide range of specialists, people who specialize in anxiety disorders, people who specialize in eating disorders, depression, people who are comfortable with the range of issues that these students bring. I'm so excited about what it means to have the type of team that we have. And as our athletic director indicates, if the center of the target is the student athlete, then we're moving in the right direction. The real mission.
Sorry about that. All right, let's move into our questions. So from that video, what stood out to some of you after watching the video about Greg Harden? And how do you think his positive outlook on mental health can benefit the athletic department? Thank you all for engaging in discussion, and thank you for your insight on that. Great discussion. Here's what I got from that video. So this video highlighted an athletic director with a positive outlook on mental health and mental health services. Gregory Harden, he just gets it. I'm sure you all quickly saw that his priorities are aligned with what benefits the student athlete first. It's very athlete or student athlete centered. Outside of athletics, imagine a CEO or a manager of an organization prioritizing the employee and their well-being, and think about the effects that would have on productivity of those organizations. It works the same in athletics. He mentions how self-development affects what a student athlete is able to do on the field. He clearly displays an awareness of how the mental affects and even enables the physical, and understands that all people come with baggage. As was covered in earlier lessons, injuries in sports need to be approached holistically to provide the most effective treatment. He continues on by mentioning that all-stars and all-Americans battle with the same stresses that you and me deal with, the same mental distresses that me and you deal with. Having an athletic director like Gregory Harden helps to foster a culture within the entire organization that destigmatizes utilizing mental health services, and it generates and fosters a culture of healthcare seeking. All these aspects and more are going to be covered in not only the following parts of this lesson, but in the coming weeks of this course. So now moving down to our next echelon, from the athletic director down to the coach. So the coach has vast influence on the culture of a team. In the athletic domain, it's important to understand that this coach is pretty much like the alpha and the omega for their players. They control their life on a day-to-day basis. They pretty much build the schedule for these players. They design how much playing time they're going to get, when they get to rest, when they get meals. They control a large amount of these athletes' lives. So they have serious influence on how an athlete may respond to injury and or how they adhere to recovery. A coach's leadership style and their values play a key role on the well-being of their players in building a student-athlete focused environment. Coaches have a large impact on the culture of a team and may generate a collective perspective towards prioritizing personal well-being. If this alpha omega prioritizes mental health, the likelihood is high that his other coaches that he has on his staff and his players will value and see the value in seeking help. Coaches have differing perspectives. This means it is not common ground. Every school is going to be different. Every coach is different and how they perceive these services. So it can either negatively or positively affect their team. Some coaches value total control, while some don't mind giving up some control to outside entities. So some coaches may keep it very close hold. They don't want to use any mental health services. They feel they have the necessary tools within their organization to take care of an athlete following any kind of hardships their athletes may be dealing with. Coaches' trust in medical staff can positively or negatively affect players. So if a coach does trust in their staff, then the likelihood is they are going to be more player centric, more employee centric. Whereas if they don't trust the medical staff, they don't trust diagnosis, they can force a player back into competition prior to them actually being ready to return, which only makes their issue worse and can take them away from the sport even longer. Players may be reluctant to report injuries to a coach who negatively perceives injury or negatively perceives an athlete who seeks mental health services, may see them as weak, may see that they don't value the team if they don't fight through injury. A coach's view on the athletic trainer communication also plays a role in a player's recovery from injury. So what we're going to see here after this section is that athletes and their trainers are in constant communication. So coaches may fear that what's being talked about in these conversation between the trainer and the athlete aren't making it up to them. They may feel that they're being either misinformed or lied to, or that things are being hidden from them. And this can have a very detrimental effect for the athlete. So with all that negative highlighted, let's see some positive and how coaching can be done right. This is a video with Coach Nick Saban, coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, a very prestigious and successful football organization. And we're going to see kind of what probably helps them win like they do and helps with their success.
We're all going to have bad things that happen, but our ability to overcome those negatives is going to go a long way in helping us be successful.
Coach Nick Saban knows what it takes to be a champion. Throughout his historic 42-year college coaching career, 16 seasons at Alabama, he's produced more NFL first-round draft picks than any other college coach. But to get his players to that level, the work doesn't just take place on the field.
All college athletes face pressure. How do you have a conversation with them in managing that pressure?
Pressure is kind of self-inflicted, and it's self-inflicted because you're focused on results. We want to focus on winning a championship. Or do you want to focus on what do I have to do each day to be able to be a champion so we'll have a chance to win a championship?
Quarterback Bryce Young won the Heisman Trophy as a sophomore. With the accolades came the expectations, and it can get intense. Fans are looking to him to deliver another championship.
I feel like a lot of times athletes can be put on this pedestal, and as athletes we can internalize that. And we can feel like we're looked at as a certain way. We should be great at everything. Everything should come easy. And that's just not the case.
Do you worry sometimes about letting people down? It's a natural thing to feel.
Yeah, I care immensely for the people I play with, for my teammates, my brothers. I have great parents who have sacrificed a bunch. This school has supported me a lot, and I want to make everyone proud.
Regardless of the game's outcome, Coach Saban enforces his 24-hour rule. 24 hours to dwell on the game just played, the good and the bad. Then they have to let it go.
You're a player for this team. When something goes bad on the field, it's not just a couple of people. I mean, they have hundreds or thousands of people in their DMs telling them pretty hateful things. What effect does that have?
You have to go back to being technical. Okay, why did this happen and what can I do to fix it? Rather than being so focused on the criticism or what everybody else thinks, because you control your thoughts, you control your feelings.
Is it tough to get these big, tough, super successful football players to talk about touchy-feely stuff?
I don't think it's as difficult now as it used to be, because I don't think the players really look at it as I have something wrong with me. They look at it more like maybe I could use the help. And it's always good to emphasize with people, take help when help is there to be given. It's not a bad thing.
Senior defensive lineman DJ Dale asked for help after experiencing a season-ending knee injury.
I was depressed and I didn't even know it. Well, I knew it, but I didn't want to admit it to myself.
Dale went to Coach Saban.
He told me that he appreciated me and that he knew I was a tough player. And I didn't want him to think that I was weak or turning my back against the team, but it was the complete opposite.
He's back on the field now, but studies show injuries can trigger depression and other emotional responses, like changes in appetite and lack of motivation in athletes. Dr. Brett McCabe worked with Dale. He's the university's sports psychologist. He's part of a team of more than 20 trained behavioral health professionals at Alabama.
An injury for the first time in an athlete's career is the first time that they realize they may be a mortal athlete. All of a sudden it's hard. And so while they're cheering for the team, there's still that self-loss sometimes of, oh my gosh, they're going on without me.
Our society, he says, has put a premium on perfection in athletics and in class. It can be unfair and hard for students to manage.
Our kids are coming in with more pressure, more standards to perform, and more expectations from the world around them. We don't give people grace and time to grow into things as a society.
Support, he says, needs to come from home as well.
When you have tough conversations with athletes and they talk about their parents, what are you hearing from them?
They don't want to disappoint them. Every kid that's out here knows where their parents are sitting or their family is sitting. At the end of the day, they want approval. And as parents, we need to let them know it's okay to not be okay. And sometimes all you have to do is send a text to your kid and just say, thinking of you, love you. And that goes a long way.
You know, I think a lot of times when we're watching, especially big-time college football on Saturday.
All right. Okay, so what stood out to some of you after watching the video of Coach Nick Saban, and how do you think his positive outlook on mental health can benefit a team? Again, great discussion. This video hit on concepts from pretty much every week of this curriculum so far. Outstanding video. We heard comments about the pressures that student athletes face academically and athletically. The interviewer highlighted the immense pressure from a fan base and the impact of social media. We are more accessible than we have ever been before in this year, 2022, almost 2023, due to these phones that we have in our pockets and all the social media that gives people a glimpse into our lives. We heard Coach Saban discuss the importance of seeking care and how the perspective on health service utilization has shifted over the years. So this goes right into what I've been talking about the previous weeks, where we are in a transition in how mental health is looked at and how it's considered in athletics. We're headed in a positive direction. We heard a player mention not wanting to look weak or that he was turning his back on his team. Lastly, we heard a sports psychologist hit on a number of positive aspects of this organization, where he said he was a member of a large team of medical service providers. We heard him mention that family, how it can impact impact how a player handles recovery, how they handle pressures, and then also he talked about how families can support their players through these hardships. As I've mentioned in past lessons, I want you all thinking about how you can become or be a change agent within your own organizations that you may be a part of in the future, and how knowing these concepts you just got highlighted in this video, you saw aspects of how Alabama runs their ship, of why they have the success that they have. In this lesson, we began at the top of the sports organization, and we're going to continue to move down in those echelons. So now that we talked about our coaches, we just saw athletic trainers in that video and physicians. Let's move down to factors and effects of athletic trainers and team physicians on recovery. So due to the nature of their position, athletic trainers, or ATs, they spend probably the most time of anybody in the organization. They spend extended periods of time with athletes, which allows them more time to interact with them and build trust or rapport between them and the athletes. ATs are in a prime position to support the physical and psychosocial recovery of student athletes. But with that being said, a report showed that ATs overwhelmingly do not feel qualified to counsel athletes, or they do not feel comfortable doing so. So ATs can play a key role, but they must have the relevant skills, the knowledge and strategy to do so. So this is actually an ongoing discussion and transition in the way that ATs are educated. They're starting to implement more mental health service aspects and or courses to their classwork that they do. Excuse me. Team physicians can play a key role in rehabilitation due to their effect on physical recovery. ATs and team physicians may feel pressure from coaches, organizations, and fans to return student athletes to play before they are ready. So they also have social medias and they have expectations that an organization puts on them. So with that, these pressures can cause misdiagnosis or overlooking mild symptoms. Oh, it's just a tweaked ankle. They may tape it up, throw you right back in the game. Or, oh, you seem like you're lacking confidence, but you'll be all right. You've done this all your life. Get back in the game. These pressures can cause them to misdiagnose. They may say that an injury is not as serious as it is to return a player to competition sooner. The traditional doctor-patient relationship is distorted when physicians are employed by the organization. So this can be distorted because of maybe information that the physician is required to provide to the organization about the patient. Or maybe the patient doesn't trust the doctor fully because they work for the organization and they're wondering, what do you have to report to my coach, to the athletic director, to the organization? What are you going to disclose outside of my care to these other entities? Organization's authority can influence your physicians or ATs to work toward the university's interests at expense of the player. This is going back to that misdiagnosis and overlooking things in order to get the player back in the competition. This could even be fear of being fired if they do not do so. Lastly, physicians may be fans of the team and for their own personal gratification may want to return a key player sooner than they may be ready to return because they want the team to win. They want the team to be successful. So what unethical behavior did you see in this section on athletic trainers and physicians, and what are some ways to avoid this unethical behavior? You guys all provided excellent insight. Something I want to highlight before we move on to the next section is that as mental health service providers, this is very important for us because ethically we have to remember to put that client first. We have to protect them from unnecessary harm and or risk throughout treatment. So while we're talking about ATs and physicians, this is very relevant to all of you future psychologists, social workers, medical staff, etc., because we cannot let the needs of an organization trump the needs of our clients. That just leads to unethical behaviors and practices. So moving on, we're going to move further down the echelon and we're going to talk about the effects of family, friends, and teammates. So the student athletes may feel pressure to remain healthy because it affects the lives of those around them. So when we're talking about family, some families, for an example, this athlete may be the first person in their family to have an opportunity to go to college, go be a college student. Maybe think about the economic gains that becoming a professional after college can have. That is put at risk when these athletes get injured. They may be the one that the family is dependent on to provide generational wealth for their family, for the up and comers, to provide money and well-being for the rest of their family. Maybe they're the ones that are carrying their family forward. This also works for friends. Some friends have expectations of being in the spotlight by being close to these athletes, or by also receiving money, favors, houses, cars, etc. They are relying on this athlete. And then teammates are relying on you to play your position, do well, know your responsibilities on a given player in a given game. When a player goes down, their teammates have to fill that void and be able to perform without them. Student athletes may feel strengthened by these family, friends, and teammates. While they can provide pressure, they can also provide key support that these athletes need while in recovery or rehabilitation. Teammates can give emotional, informational, and tangible support. So this could be rides to treatment. This could be rides to practice. This could be, hey, I know how you feel. I've had an injury. They can also provide information from the coach to the player. So that's where that informational support comes in. Family provide listening and emotional support and unconditional love. A lot of families, regardless of what you do, negatively or positively, you got that love, you got that support. A lot of these student athletes are going to lean back on their family initially following an injury when they're feeling devastated. And like the psychologist said, every player in that stadium knows where their family's sitting when they enter those games. Family is extremely important. Student athletes may want to avoid looking weak for teammates and friends by not seeking mental health services. This goes back to a lot of that culture that's instilled on these teams. But if these student athletes are worried about looking weak in front of their friends or in front of their teammates, they feel like their teammates are going to think less of them. This will lower the likelihood that they will seek mental health services. The perception of those close to them may affect their perception of injury and mental health service utilization. So this goes further into that these student athletes care immensely about how much the people around them, not how much, but I should say how they perceive mental health services and what they think of them. A lot of these players have been essentially immortalized at a lot of their sports organizations prior to that or in high school. A lot of their teammates and or friends and family have never seen them fail at something. So we heard that sports psychologist mention in the video, this is the first time that some of these athletes have ever felt mortal. And that's very difficult for some of them to deal with. So all of us have people in our lives that we would like to not disappoint. Most people also have some form of support from those closest to them when they are going through difficult times, and student athletes are no different. For many of us, that is family and our close friends. For student athletes, there's also family, teammates, and members of the organization around them. Remember that the social lives of student athletes regularly involve their teammates and team functions. All these factors highlighted in this section are important to understand to be able to provide the best care for student athletes. So with all the factors presented above, how can you provide an environment that fosters help seeking and mental health service utilization? So, for example, from my perspective, you guys provided some excellent points on that. I say establishing a culture of help seeking and mental health service utilization seems to be the bedrock of positive effects on recovery from injury, a tool that can be beneficial for mental health service providers as well as members of the athletic department is attentive listening. Attentive listening enables us to establish rapport, helps provide validation for the individual, and may aid in uncovering the multiple effects the presenting problem is having on an individual. So this attentive listening utilized throughout an organization by the director, the coaches, the athletic trainers, the team physician, once that feeling is spread throughout an organization, it's going to foster higher utilization of services. It's going to foster that help seeking. It's going to create a bond within that organization. It's going to have a number of benefits, not just in rehab or recovery, but in other aspects of what that organization does. It may enhance their productivity. We saw that if you have an organization and a coach that prioritize the athlete's best interest over team wins, student athletes are more likely to seek mental health services, remain motivated throughout recovery, and adhere to their rehabilitative plans. And remember, this doesn't just apply within athletics. This can be in any organization. If they prioritize that, if they prioritize caring for their employees, caring for their players, it's going to have exponential positive impacts in other aspects of what the company or organization does. So let's move into a group activity. I've already split you into groups, 3 groups. So what I want each of you to do is I want you to imagine your teams have a client who disclosed that they are receiving pressure from teammates to lie about how they are feeling to the rehabilitative team in order to return to competition sooner. What tools, techniques, or actions can you utilize in response to the client disclosing this information to you? So each team is going to have 10 minutes to think of at least 2 tools, techniques, or actions to respond to this situation. And then we're going to have an additional 10 minutes where we're going to present that to the other groups of the class. You guys did an outstanding job on that group activity. You guys are thinking exactly along the lines of what I'm trying to present. The goal is to be change agents and or to further environments that are already prioritizing mental health services. So by understanding these concepts, if you become a team physician, a team psychologist, an athletic trainer, a social worker, an anesthesiologist, whatever you decide to get into, when you understand that placing the client first, placing the employee first, opens the floodgates for a number of other positive outcomes. This is just going to be beneficial for whatever organization you decide to be a part of. So here's a couple community resources that I want to spotlight. You know, I spotlight some every week. Here is mental health in athletes. This is a page that it has 45 mental health resources that help athletes to cope with injury. The sites range from support with depression and stress to providing general tips to maintain mental wellness. So this site additionally includes sources of various levels of athletic competition. And then Athletes for Hope. This website that I provided links to you all via email, this website brings athletes together for support with the goal of terminating the stigma surrounding seeking mental health sources. The core principles presented on this site are educational, storytelling, convening, and advocacy. Additionally, there's a link provided that leads to numerous mental health resources. One aspect I really like about that second site is it breaks it down by athletic level. So it has professional, college, high school, breaks it all down for your athletes. So in conclusion, I just wanted to thank you all for your attentiveness and your participation throughout this lesson. Thank you for remaining focused. Remember that no one environmental factor is universal for all student athletes. They're all going to respond differently. Every organization is different. You can't fit a square peg into a circle hole. There's not a one size fits all for this. These factors are key in understanding and being able to provide effective treatment for your future clients in whatever environment that you're performing in. If some of you become employed by university or become part of a rehabilitative team in the future, you may be able to become change agents in the culture of an athletics department or whatever organization you're part of. As I stated in the first week, I'm looking forward to the remainder of the curriculum and seeing the 3-session treatment plans that you all generate in next week's class. If you have any questions, I'll be available for 10 to 15 minutes after we dismiss, so please do not be shy. I know a number of these topics generate further thought, and some of us even have some built up thoughts, opinions, emotions, and ideas about these topics. So feel free to hang back and express those. For those that will not be hanging around, you have an amazing day. And I'm so thankful to get to instruct you. See you next time.